We want to take you now live to Geneva, where Philippe Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, is speaking and updating the press there about the latest developments on the ground. Let's listen in.
With the member states, and also to comment on the review, the Catherine Colonna's report, and maybe also a little update on the OIOS report. When it comes to the situation on the ground, I mean, basically our colleagues are telling us that there is a extraordinary deep anxiety prevailing right now in Gaza, because the question everybody asks is whether, yes or not, there will be a military offensive, and the likelihood of a military offensive will all depend whether or not a ceasefire deal will be reached this week. Just to let you know that people have not yet been asked to evacuate from Rafah, but there is a sense that if there is no deal this week, that this can happen at any time. My colleagues on the ground are also describing basically a constant, I would say, a constant state of trauma among the people, and basically they came with a new acronym. We are not talking anymore about PTSD, but we are more talking about the CTSD, which would mean constant traumatic stress disorder prevailing in the Gaza Strip, and obviously this is not too surprising. This morning I commented also on the latest development in the north, where we are engaged in a race against the clock to reverse, in fact, the spreading hunger and the looming famine, especially in the northern part. The good news is that my colleagues have reported that there is more food available in the market, so increased availability, but it still does not mean that the food is accessible, just because there is absolutely no cash circulating in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. We believe that much more needs to be done. It is true that there have been more supply entering during the months of April, but this is still far from enough to reverse the negative trend we have seen. I have also mentioned this morning when I met the member states the issue about the blame game you might have heard between the Israeli authority, mainly the Kogat, and the United Nations. On one hand, the Israeli saying what we are providing all the necessary food. The problem is on the side of the United Nations. Let me just give you a few facts regarding this. First, this is not true, and this is not our reading. Look at, starting with UNRWA, whenever we ask for a convoy going from the south to the north, our convoys are systematically denied, so we still have no access. Whenever a permission is given to deliver anywhere else in the Strip, the process is always complicated and very cumbersome. When it comes to enter into Gaza, we have this system of offloading, downloading, offloading, downloading the trucks, which makes things extraordinarily difficult also. We have operating hours of the crossing which vary from one day to another one, with limited number of hours where we can operate. And most of the time, many times a week, we have also the crossing being closed because they are just dumping released detainees, or dumping sometimes bodies who have been taken to Israel and back to the Gaza Strip. Now, talking about the detainees, I have also briefed the member state about the report we have issued about a week ago. It was the first time that, in fact, UNRWA has released such a report. In my meeting this morning, I have reminded that, of course, hostages are still in captivity with the Hamas, and that both the Secretary General, myself, but other UN officials keep asking for the unconditional and immediate release of the hostages. But I have also shared this morning our deep concern regarding the Gazans detained by the Israeli security forces. The report you have seen recently has been based on a number of testimonies collected by the agency. Why by the agency? Because we are at the crossing, we are at Kerem Shalom, because we are manning the main logistical hub at the entry of Gaza, and these people basically have been released at this place. And according to the testimonies that we have collected, people have told us that they are routinely rounded up. When they were arrested, they were routinely rounded up, stripped to their underwear, and loaded into trucks, blindfolded and bombed. Most of the time, once arrested, these detainees remain incommunicado, and they are subjected to shocking inhuman treatment. Among the inhuman treatment, they have described to us waterboarding, severe beatings, attack by dogs, being forced to hold stress position for hours, sometimes 12 hours, 24 hours, and being forced to wear diaper instead of accessing the toilet. And among the detainees who have been released, we had also a number of UNRWA staff, and they have also reported to us that while under interrogation they were asked a lot of questions about their work with UNRWA, and basically also being pressured to state that the agency is politically affiliated in the Gaza Strip. This morning I have also highlighted the fact that, as you know, the agency is under a lot of strain. They are called for the agency to be dismantled, but the agency also has been targeted over the last 7 months in Gaza, where both our staff but also our premises, as well as our operation. I just reminded that since the beginning of the war, we have 182 staff members now who have been killed, more than 160 premises which have been damaged or totally destroyed, and most of these premises were sheltering displaced people, and more than 400 people have been killed in these premises. We have also seen that whenever we vacated premises, mainly in the north of the Gaza Strip, they have been then used for military purposes. We have also heard about the allegation regarding tunnel underneath some of our premises, and basically I was calling the member state to make sure that at the end of the war, once we have a ceasefire, that we have also that we put in place an independent investigation to look into this blatant disregard of the United Nations, in order to avoid that this becomes also in the future the new standard. I also briefed this morning about where we stand on the OIOS report, but in fact we have been briefed by Stefan Durajic, I think on Friday, just to reiterate what he has said. We started with 12 allegations.
If you're just joining us on Al Jazeera, we're just listening there to Philippe Lazzarini, the Commissioner General of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, who's briefing reporters in Geneva about the latest developments on the ground in Gaza. He talked about the situation in Gaza, saying there's deep anxiety prevailing because everyone is worried about an Israeli military offensive on Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. He said people have not been told to evacuate yet from Rafah, but the fear is that if there is no ceasefire deal in the coming days, then the ground invasion of Rafah by Israeli forces will happen. On the humanitarian situation, he said it was a race against the clock to reverse hunger and famine. More food is available, he said, on the markets, but it's not accessible because there's no cash circulating, especially in the northern part of the Strip. He said more aid supplies had entered the Gaza Strip in April, but it's far from enough. He also talked about the gross human rights violations against detainees, Palestinian detainees recently released by Israel. And on UNRWA, he said the agency is under a lot of strain. The agency has been targeted in Gaza, its premises and operations targeted by the Israeli forces. Again, the commissioner of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, Philippe Lazzarini, speaking there in Geneva.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.